McGraw-Hill Audio presents The Millionaire Maker. Act, think, and make money the way the wealthy do. Written by Loral Langemeier. Narrated by Bernadette Dunne. Chapter 1. The Wealth Cycle. Money in Motion. Even without winning the lottery, your chances of becoming a millionaire are a lot better than you think. In fact, if you have the desire and conviction to be wealthy, you have a better chance of generating and, more important, sustaining wealth than someone who has won the lottery. This book will take all the mystery out of wealth building. I believe that anyone can take a prescriptive, step-by-step approach to eliminate financial hardship and build wealth of $1 million or more. And I don't mean just net worth. I mean cash flow, cold, hard cash in your pocket. Those of you who know that cash flow is king understand that I am talking about something real. This book provides that prescription. It's not a magic wand. There are no platitudes or cliches, slaps on the backs or pom-poms. Most wealthy people get that way not by chance, but by taking specific, tangible action. This book is about taking action to generate wealth and make you a millionaire, precisely and methodically. If I handed you $10,000 right now and you did not understand how to put it into the wealth cycle process, then you would be no closer to generating wealth than you were before you had it. That's because most of us grew up living in a lifestyle cycle. In the lifestyle cycle, wealth can never be built because money that comes in goes right out again to support perishable, one-time use consumption. And in many lifestyle cycles, money is spent, thanks to credit cards, even before it's earned. Conversely, in the wealth cycle, money coming in supports assets. That is, money-making resources that will generate cash flow and create wealth. The difference between having wealth and not having wealth is the difference between living in a lifestyle cycle and living in a wealth cycle. A person earning $14,000 a year who understands the concept of a wealth cycle has a 100% better chance of building and sustaining wealth than a person who makes $1 million a year and lives in a lifestyle cycle. And so, although it would be nice of me to hand you $10,000, it's better if I teach you about the wealth cycle process. You want passive income, not a passive life. The wealth cycle process shows you how to continually make money by increasing your assets, thus creating a cash machine to feed those assets and steadily building your passive income so you can expand your wealth and live larger. Too many experts tell you to live small, spend nothing, and barely breathe as you dawdle off into the horizon. That sounds just awful to me. I believe it is possible to achieve wealth and have a latte with breakfast. Even if your debt seems utterly daunting, the wealth cycle process will help you spiral your debt down while you spiral your wealth up. That is how the wealthy do it, and it's how you'll do it too. In 1991, when Donald Trump was $900 million in debt, it's pretty clear he didn't shrink his life and focus on reducing his debt. Instead, he found a way to rebuild his wealth so that it surpassed and soon eliminated his debt, creating one of the greatest financial turnarounds in history. While many financial experts are earnest professionals trying to make a living, they can't help the fact that they are commission-oriented and tend to be conservative. Their interest is to keep your money in safe and sound accounts. But safe and sound accounts aren't so safe and sound anymore. The behavior of a few executives at a handful of companies can cause the entire stock market to swing. Global events, such as terrorism or instability in emerging markets, can cause bonds to sink. Pension funds default, the Social Security system seems shaky, and retirement plans can disappear. These days, all those planning strategies that seemed secure and conservative aren't. Sometimes putting your financial plan in the hands of someone else is the riskiest thing you can do. The United States of America was founded on the principles of initiative, resourcefulness, teamwork, and leadership. Abdicating responsibility to a sovereign was shunned, and accountability and opportunity celebrated. Yet less than 7% of our population knows how to generate wealth. There was never a class in this. Your parents weren't given a special wealth manual to pass down to you, and financial planners have no incentive to teach you what they get paid to do for you. If you make the decision to do for yourself, you create the capacity to be wealthy. A year from now, you'll wish you'd started today. You can make the decision to make a lot of money at any age and in any stage of your life. The wealth cycle process will meet you wherever you are. Whether you have a solid net worth and are looking to increase your returns, or are deeply in debt, can't forgo your day job, and want to be free of money worries once and for all, I will help you become a millionaire, a multimillionaire, and beyond, depending on your personal goal. No matter who you are and where you are, wealth building is well within your grasp. You just need to step up to the plate. Next, the Leonard family needed to structure entities for the management of their direct investments, for example, real estate, and for the manufacturing and marketing of the dune buggies, for example, 1. Trusts, 2. C corporations, S corporations, and limited liability companies, LLC, 3. Limited partnerships. Under the U.S. tax code, assets held in these entities are treated differently than an individual's personal assets. These entities often retain more cash than an individual possibly could. This helps the entity and its assets to create more cash flow. Most people were encouraged and trained to become sole proprietors and salaried workers, that is, good employees. Few of the wealthy are good employees. Every single wealthy person I know has done it inside a corporate structure, taking full advantage of the highest tax savings allowed by law. Having a job or being a professional need not be mutually exclusive from creating an optimal tax entity for your wealth generation activities. Entity structuring is imperative in the wealth cycle process in order to take full advantage of the tax code and hold on to more of your hard-earned money. Entities are the difference between having money going into your Social Security account or into your company's employer identification number for federal tax identification. In the wealth cycle process, you need to get your house in order. By setting up your life as a business, you start thinking like a business, and that means becoming a profitable and productive entity. With entity structuring, you will establish companies, partnerships, and trusts that will give your money a place to flow into and out of. This will help you better manage your millions and keep you focused on your asset allocation and passive income. For the Leonard family, we recommended they set up several entities. 1. An LLC for their real estate properties. 2. An LLC for the boys' real estate properties. 3. An S corporation to market the dune buggies. 4. A trust to serve as an umbrella for all of their companies and holdings. As the Leonard family increases their business and their profitability, we'll also consider bringing in a C corporation to manage the other businesses. The initial cost for setting up each of these entities, usually around $600 with the help of a knowledgeable professional, will be more than covered by the revenue they retain each year. The next building block, forecasting, sets up your tax strategy by building a chart of accounts. For every wealth builder, this means a full accounting of revenue generation from business and investing activities, as well as a projection of spending to support these activities. While the family would have to hire a bookkeeper and therefore code their expenses, they should not be caught up in doing this paperwork. It is not a good use of any wealth builder's time. This chart is what will establish the fine line between what you keep and what you give the government. For the next building block, debt management, the Leonard family would follow the 5-step debt elimination plan so they could rid themselves of their credit card debt. This step, which would begin immediately, shows how each phase of the wealth-building process is carried out almost concurrently. The sequence of the Leonard family's building blocks is as follows: assets, cash machine, entities, forecasting, debt management, wealth account. Yet debt management begins almost the day that asset allocation is set in motion, and the Wealth Account Priority Payment, WAPP, is made at the same time that the debt payments are made. Bad debt is the greatest barrier to wealth. Eliminating bad debt is an essential building block of the wealth cycle. If you're paying high interest on credit card debt, you are losing precious dollars that could be used to invest and make much more money. The compounding interest of money is exponential, as those of you in debt know all too well. But interest also compounds up, so spending money before you've earned it, or spending money before you've invested it, is like stealing from yourself. Bad debt has got to go. The Wealth Cycle Process's 5-step debt elimination plan removes debt and creates wealth simultaneously, so you do not have to wait for one to get to the other. The next step in the sequence for the Leonard family was to set up a wealth account, as well as a WAPP, to ensure that a portion of the earnings from Mike's salary, as well as the income from the new business and investments, would be set aside for investments. This is essential in order to keep fueling the assets. As we structure this family's wealth plan, we'll set up their personal and corporate wealth accounts and priority payment systems. A dollar saved is a dollar of delayed spending. By spending what we earn, most of us are skipping over this fundamental action necessary to generate wealth, namely, creating the wealth account. The wealth account is a specific interest-bearing account in a brokerage firm, from which you can draw to invest in even more rewarding opportunities, such as real estate and business ventures. Even if the money is only in an interest-bearing cash account, and there are now institutions that give as much as 3% interest, you'll soon be able to accumulate enough money to start investing. Once the wealth account is established, you will start the practice of paying yourself first. Every month, you will deposit a fixed amount into your wealth account, preferably an amount automatically withdrawn from your paycheck or corporate account. As the money in the wealth account grows, it is put to work in assets that generate cash flow. In the wealth cycle process, you will invest in assets that produce passive income and reinvest that passive income into new assets to produce more consistent passive income. This cycle of turning income into assets and assets into income is the key to building sustainable wealth. The money works for you, not you for it, and you focus your attention on maximizing your rates of return. The 12 building blocks of the wealth cycle. Just as every person's life is particular to them, so must each person's wealth plan be tailored to the individual. The wealth cycle process is based on 12 building blocks that you will employ in your own fashion, depending on your specific requirements and objectives. Each building block is explained in detail throughout this book, but briefly they are defined as follows. 1. Gap analysis. An innovative financial model that will create a map from where you are to where you want to go. 2. Financial baseline. An overview of your current financial situation in the form of a basic profit and loss statement that includes revenue and expenditures and a balance sheet that includes assets and liabilities. 3. Freedom Day. The realization of each goal, starting with 120-day objectives and accelerating beyond millionaire status. 4. Debt management. A 5-step debt elimination plan that erases consumer debt, the greatest barrier to wealth building. 5. Entities. The organization of trusts, partnerships, and corporations that hold and service wealth and take advantage of the tax strategies devised by Congress and state legislatures to protect companies and help businesses grow. 6. Cash machine. The fuel that accelerates the wealth cycle, which comes from your capacity to create more revenue from a legitimate business venture. You must learn to earn. 7. Wealth account. The concept of pay yourself first by consistently committing a portion of earnings for investing, a portion we call WAPP, the Wealth Account Priority Payment. 8. Forecasting. A projection of your revenue, expenditures, assets, and liabilities, and how to direct those numbers into companies that make full use of the tax code. 9. Assets. Direct and diversified asset allocation, which is essential to create passive income to feed the wealth cycle. 10. Leadership. You must learn to lead your wealth. Though you may and should choose to delegate your wealth building, no one can drive the wealth cycle process like you can. 11. Teamwork. You must build and direct a team of professionals to help you develop and execute your strategies and reach your goals. Wealth building is a team sport. 12. Conditioning. Financial way of thinking. As you accumulate the experience that gets results and gain the confidence to commit even more significantly to your wealth plan, you will develop a positive and healthy relationship with money. When you begin the wealth cycle process, you engage each and every building block. They are codependent and indivisible. All wealth plans begin with the first 3 blocks: gap analysis, financial baseline, and freedom day. These 3 blocks are continuously revised and adjusted throughout the process. Additionally, each person's wealth plan requires the bottom 3 foundational blocks: leadership, teamwork, and conditioning. The middle building blocks, though engaged simultaneously, are used in different sequences and with different emphasis, depending on the needs and wants of the individual wealth builder. Proper sequencing is essential to the wealth cycle process. Getting started. Wealth building is a dynamic, continuous process that consistently engages each building block. While some of the building blocks of the wealth cycle process are more fun and exciting than others, they are all critical and doable. I know because I did them by pushing my way past the same mental, emotional, and material stumbling blocks that you will encounter. I was a farm girl who knew it was much better to grow your own tomatoes than buy them, and I knew I had to plant my own seeds. I invested a small amount of money. I took a chance, and I've never given anyone sole power over my money since. The 12 building blocks of the wealth cycle give you control over your money and help you establish a lifelong wealth plan. Chapter 2. The Gap Analysis. Mapping Your Way to Millions. A few days after I spoke to the television producer, I collected some members of my wealth team who are experienced finance and investing coaches, and we drove to Oakland, California to meet the Leonard family. As I was getting out of the car, I felt like John Wayne approaching some small town that needed saving. We strode up the walk, ready to face off against the family's financial frustrations and perceived failures. Mary and Mike Leonard were all that the producer had promised. The couple was smart and dynamic, and they both wanted to start taking their financial situation seriously. Though they had a little bit of savings and a home that had appreciated over the years, they also had credit card debt, a salary that was going away, 2 sons in high school hoping to go to college, and no plan for their financial future. After getting to know the family a little, talking to their sons, and seeing their home, I was ready to ask them 8 questions that would help them map out a wealth plan they would use for the rest of their lives. Mary and Mike Leonard were intrigued but apprehensive. Mary's #1 concern was losing her job. "Losing your job was the best thing that ever happened to you," I said. "It was?" Mary said. Her eyes scanned mine for a sanity check. "Yes," I said. "You've been given the gift of urgency." "That's a gift," Mike said. "Didn't you hear me?" Mary said. "I lost my job. I need to get another one." I shook my head. "You are not going back to a job." "I'm not?" "No," I said. She started to cry. Mary had always worked. She'd been brought up to believe that she had to put in 9 to 5 at least for her money. I could sympathize. I had been similarly conditioned. I grew up in a large Midwestern family with very traditional values, whether I was plucking weeds from the bean field or tending to the cows, sheep, pigs, chickens, or rabbits. I was always, reliably, unfailingly, living my myth, the same myth that Mary Leonard lived. Work hard for your money. Given my upbringing, it made a lot of sense that I would think like this. I was born to teenage parents who had little money. As a child, I did not know any wealthy people, and I didn't have access to any Ivy League or country club networks. What I did have, what was handed down to me from my parents, was a strong work ethic. I started working hard for my money when I was young, helping with the family farm business. At 17, I established a health training company, and when I was 19 and still in college, I created a business that specialized in corporate wellness and human performance. I went on to study and receive various degrees in finance, human performance, exercise physiology, and organizational psychology. And by most measures, I had a fairly good career, working for a major oil company, first as an employee, and then as a consultant, and then learning my current business of wealth education and mentoring. I'd always planned to be a millionaire by the time I was 35, but my plan took on a new meaning when I became a single mother. Terrified at the prospect of looming responsibilities, during my pregnancy, I decided to put all my efforts into attaining more success in my business, finances, and personal life. And I did it. When I was 6 months pregnant and just 2 weeks shy of my 34th birthday, my net worth passed the $1 million mark. I had to convince Mary and Mike Leonard that they needed to make this same commitment. "Boy, is your glass half full," Mike said. I laughed. "You bet," I said. "There's abundance all around, and I'm shocked how few people take advantage of the opportunity to create wealth." I turned to Mary. "You are not going to get another job." "I'm not?" I shook my head. "Most of us want wealth, right?" I said, and Mike and Mary nodded. "But there's activity involved. You don't get to lie on the couch watching TV and eating bonbons and still become a millionaire." I've never seen real wealth come to those who wait. If you look at many wealthy people, and I'm talking about the ones who are going to keep their wealth for generations, you will see that they are engaged, active human beings. In fact, they're rarely sitting still. I've seen too many people scared of becoming wealthy because they don't want to be responsible for it or do all that work. And it's true, money takes responsibility and activity. I always tell people, it's your choice. You can do paperwork or you can be poor. "We're willing to do the work," Mike said. "We know how to work. But with Mary not having a job and you telling us she's not going to get another one, that seems a bit scary, Loral." "I bet," I said, "and I also promise that some of the things I'll ask you to do to build wealth will be uncomfortable." Mary smiled. "Now it really sounds appealing." Mike nodded. "But I guess if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing," he said. "Exactly," I said. Given the prospect of the unknown and the requirement of effort, most people choose to stay with what they know and expend less effort. In the short term, it's more comfortable. But in the long run, it's the same old thing over and over. Too little income, too many expenses, credit card debt, and no plan for the future. "That's us," Mike said. "That's a lot of people," I said, "and it's too bad. Because once a person kickstarts in the direction of a wealth cycle, the process has a momentum all its own, and the wealth is generated and accelerates faster than you can imagine." "Sounds good," Mary said. "It's fabulous," I said, "and every single one of my clients who engages in the wealth cycle process says the same thing. They can't believe they haven't been doing this their entire lives. Not one of them would even consider going back to their old ways." "I'm in," Mary said. Mike was a little less certain. "It's not that I don't want to make the effort, Loral," Mike said, "but I don't want to lose anything." "I don't want you to lose anything either," I said. Worst thing I ever saw was a 60-year-old man who walked into my office having lost almost everything. He'd worked 35 years as a pilot for one of the major airlines, had trusted his earnings to the airline's pension plan, and lost over $1 million of savings when the airline announced the default of its pension plan. And people call that security. Something heavy must have landed on Mike's chest, because he leaned back into the couch with a deep sigh. "I'm not sharing anything new, Mike," I said. "Long before Enron, it was public knowledge that pension plans are not safe or secure. and it's not just pension plans. Look at the mutual fund scandals of 2004. It's not enough that most mutual funds actually underperform the market, but the safekeeping of those investments has now come into question. "And what do you think is going to happen with Social Security?" Mary asked. "Exactly," I said. "Let's look at what security really is. I think wealth building means taking matters into your own hands. At least then you're in control. You know what's going on with your money." "Can we do that?" Mary said. "I don't know the first thing about investing." "You can learn," I said. "It's just not that hard, and it's fun. The good news is getting that knowledge is easier than you think." The Leonard boys came in from outside and sat down with their parents. It was time to secure a wealth plan for the Leonard family for the rest of their lives. 8 questions in 8 minutes equals a lifelong wealth plan. 8 questions in 8 minutes is the first exercise I conduct with my clients. In fact, at my company's team-made millionaire seminars, we often pull someone out of the crowd and do the exercise right there in front of a live audience. Participants learn immediately how to conduct a new conversation about money, because we ask them to share not only their vision, but their current financial situation, right down to everything they own and owe, everything they have coming in and flowing out, and then we devise a wealth plan for them. As you will see from the following exercises, answers tend to be top-of-mind estimates, as do the subsequent wealth plans. When participants leave the seminar, their first step is to uncover their financial baseline so they can better understand their current financial situation. When our clients work with us in one-on-one coaching or in our big table workshops, they usually come in with their financial baselines prepared, so their answers are more detailed. For purposes of this book, we will prepare gap analyses for all the case studies the same way we do it at the seminars. Our intention is to show you a pattern of sequencing so you can better understand the building blocks and the wealth cycle process. The examples in the book are drawn from actual scenarios I've had with clients, but they are a fictionalized blend of several real clients. In other words, the names and situations have been changed to protect the innocent. These profiles serve only as examples. None of these case studies or numbers should be viewed as actual investment opportunities. All the building blocks of the wealth cycle are associated with each of the 8 questions I ask, but in each question, certain building blocks are emphasized more than others. Question 1. What is your monthly income? The parents looked over at their sons, and I sensed they were not sure about sharing this information. "Money conversations have been taboo too long," I said. "It's time we started having these conversations out loud so that we can get help, learn, and teach our children about money." Mary nodded. "I make, or made, $25,000 a year, and Mike makes $50,000 a year." When I ask this question, I'm looking for flat information off tax forms, that is, W-2s for salaried employees or 1099s for those who are self-employed. I also want to know how much their business makes. In the middle columns of the gap analysis, we call this revenue, not income, because as we create the wealth plan, we will start looking at pre-tax dollars the way a business does, as revenue, not the way an individual does, as pre-tax or gross income. In the United States, there are 2 tax systems, one for the poor and uneducated, make money, pay taxes, spend money, and one for the wealthy and educated, make money, spend money, pay taxes. Americans overpay billions a year on taxes because they don't know how to structure their finances. Forecasting and entities, 2 of the building blocks of the wealth cycle, focus on tax strategies that will help you retain more of your earnings. As I showed with the Leonard family, the question, "How much money do you make?" causes most people to balk. Many of us have been brought up to believe that conversations about money are in bad taste and that financial success and failures are personal subjects that shouldn't be discussed. As a result, Most of us are not knowledgeable about wealth building. This
Sample complete. Ready to continue?